three-time champion in the National Basketball Association, and also spent some time in the front office of the Chicago Bulls, where he won those championships. A Detroit Michigander, and now with the Wasserman Group, the Wasserman Media Group, the EVP and managing executive and an agent to many stars in the NBA. Good to see you again, BJ Armstrong. How are you?
Oh, it's always great to be back, and it's great to be here. So good to see you.
Really appreciate you saying that. What do you think of what the Warriors did last night? What do you take away from Game 2 that gives you maybe hope or concern if you're the Raptors? What do you take away from Game 2, BJ?
After Game 1, I was really concerned to see what adjustments the Warriors were going to do in Game 2. I didn't see much room that they could really do as far as making adjustments. The Raptors looked more active, they looked younger, more athletic, and they really were pushing the pace of the game. But give the Warriors credit for what they were able to do. They have the heart of a champion. They are a very persistent group, and more importantly, they're very mentally tough. And they took away the transition of the Raptors in Game 2. They took away the ability for them to get out there and get easy, uncontested shots. And more importantly, they just really dictated the tempo of the game. And you got to give the Warriors credit. They found a way. They have every excuse with injuries and all of the obstacles they're facing to really kind of just give an excuse to not to play and not to win. But they find a way. Coach Kerr and his staff, they found a way last night. Even when it didn't look good, they found a way. When they were down 10 or 12 points, I think, in the second quarter, they found a way to get back in the game.
The number of times, as I said to start this show, that the third quarter has been the Warriors' quarter, and the number of times that we've counted them out because of the injury front, that they keep on doing what they're doing. What is Steve Kerr doing? You know him as a player. You know the Phil philosophy.
Yes.
You also represent JaVale McGee, so you've had player and you used to represent Draymond.
Right.
You know how players are placed into certain situations by Kerr. What does he do? Can you give us a better idea of what he does?
Steve does a couple things that I think are very interesting. One, he asks all the players to provide the effort and energy necessary to win the game. And if you saw last night, the Warriors brought the game. They brought the fight to the game. Last night in the second quarter, to me, which was the most critical moment, or one of the most critical moments of the game, they were down 12 points. Steve Kerr allows his team to figure it out on the fly. Steve never coaches his game plan. He coaches the game. They were down 12 points. And instead of the Raptors going up maybe 15 or 20 to end the second quarter, the Warriors hung around and found a way to only be down 5 going into the second half. Now, to many of us, or I think to the basketball fans, maybe that wasn't a big deal. But last night, that was, to me, one of the most critical moments, because that was an opportunity for the Raptors to take complete control of the game. They didn't do it. The Warriors hung around. They felt good about what they were able to do in the second half. And then Steve Kerr, as he always does, he came out in the second half and he designed a play every time down in the second half for them to get a shot. Not only a shot for a player, a shot for his main player, which was Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, and it allowed the other players to kind of figure out what to do in the course of the game. And they ran off like 18 points or something, 18-0 run in the third quarter.
Well, I showed my kids, my two oldest sons, the movie Hoosiers for the first time this weekend. Okay. No, you understand why I bring this up and say it was great. Sometimes I had to explain to them that, Dennis Hopper wasn't really drunk or anything like that. But it was, the reason why I bring it up was Coach Dale, played by Gene Hackman, 4 passes before even taking a shot.
Right.
And that's his philosophy, and he was trying to drill that into the guys. Last night, all 22 made field goals for the Warriors in the second half came off an assist. Every last one of them. Not a single hero ball, nothing. Yes. And how does something like that happen? Is that a Kerr philosophy that we're seeing in play here?
Well, you saw, I think the big thing that you saw in the first game was the Raptors' ability to get out in transition.
Right.
Okay, you saw 2 things really that the Warriors did, that the Raptors did in the first game. They were able to get out in transition, which allowed them to score. And then, also the Raptors were able to create turnovers. And I was interested in Game 2, what was Steve Kerr and his staff going to do? Well, the first thing they did was they got to the free throw line. They cut down on their turnovers. Okay, and they were trying to offensive rebound by playing over the top. They played big last night, and you saw Bogut, you saw Draymond Green get lobs, you saw them do things to really cut down on the transition of the Raptors, and they were able to play 5-against-5 basketball, which cut down all the easy, uncontested shots of the Raptors. And give the Warriors credit. They came out with the idea, we're going to take this fight to the Raptors, and then they were also going to cut down on their transition, cut down on their ability, the Raptors' ability to get out and just get uncontested shots. And the Warriors did a great job last night.
Cousins was just distributing. He was amazing.
Well, think about this, Rich.
PJ.
They got I think Draymond had 9 assists. I think Boogie had 6 assists. You got 15 assists or so from your bigs. Okay, and that's what they're saying is that,
exactly right. By the way, you got those numbers.
Yeah,
right,
just off the top. And then think about it. They have the ability to not only throw the ball and operate from the low post, which you don't see often anymore. They were passers. They were passers from the post, which you didn't see often. So if you were watching the game, and I'm sure like the rest of us, how were the Warriors able to get all these backdoor cuts? It's because not only they occupied on the strong side, they were running very creative things on the weak side. And one of the most creative things I've seen in a long time, which Steve, give him credit, he was allowing his predominant scores, to become screeners. They were screening on the weak side. And as we all know as players, the player that gets open the most is the guy who sets the screen. And now you saw another part of Steph Curry's game that you hadn't seen. He is a terrific screener. That's how he was getting open and getting himself, not only getting himself open, but he was getting his teammates open.
Well, that was before Clay went out, I guess, and B.J. Armstrong here on the Rich Eisen Show. Let's get to the boxing one that Nick Nurse put into play when Klay Thompson went out, the boxing one. Do we have Steph Curry's response to that boxing one defense?
The whole fourth quarter they were playing some janky defense, just trying to send bodies to me everywhere. Our whole roster just took advantage of it. Over the course of the game, that's kind of disrespectful to leave Andre Iguodala open like that. With the game on the line, he's made big shots like that before.
So let's get the definition of janky for those who may not
let's
know.
get that out.
Do you have the definition of janky over there, Chris? Could you look that up for me, please?
Yeah, one second.
Because today a lot of people are hanging their hats on Curry's response to all that about Nick Nurse's defensive play. You got that over there, Chris?
Janky means of extremely poor or unreliable quality.
Would you agree with that?
I would not agree with that. I was applauding Coach Nurse for having the courage to do a boxing one at that stage of the game.
Game 2 of the NBA Finals.
I've seen a lot over my years, but I was applauding. My wife was looking at me. She's like, what are you standing? I was at home standing up applauding last night that he had the courage to do this, let alone during the season, but in the NBA Finals. And the most astounding thing to me is I think that has to be the first time that the Warriors have seen that. And I think it was obvious by the way they were running their offense. I don't think they knew what to do. I was looking to see what the Warriors were going to do to make some type of adjustment, but it seemed to be very effective. And I give Coach Nurse credit of saying, in the half court, we know we can defend this team. But, obviously they got to go out there and win the game and execute and make shots. But for them to do that, I thought it was great. And it was one of the great things I've seen in the NBA Finals. And I give them all the credit. And if it's okay, I still want to applaud. I mean, I was impressed, very impressed by that.
No, it certainly worked. I mean, this game came down to a couple of possessions towards the end. And if there's no Clay and no Durant, it becomes much easier to come up with more janky things potentially for Game 3. Do you think Durant needs to play for the Warriors to win 3 out of the next 5? BJ.
Well, the Warriors are going to need to have a third scorer. Okay, they had great contributions from their bench last night, and make no doubt about it, Boogie was a huge asset for them, and he gave them probably more minutes. They didn't really know what he was capable of giving, and give him credit. I think he played like 28 minutes or so.
He did.
And he was really terrific, and I'm really happy for him. And their bench played well, and obviously Iguodala came up big once again. But we always expect him to come up big in big moments. So, but they got key contributions from all areas, from their entire team. I mean, they really played a great team game last night and then allowed them to come up with a victory.
So a yes or no answer, please. That was very agenting, very lawyerly, B.J. Armstrong. Do you think Durant needs to play Because you can maybe get.
I do.
Okay.
I think he needs to play not so much for the offensive end. They can score enough points. I mean, they've scored over 108, 109 points in 2 games in a row. And arguably they did that without a Klay Thompson in the fourth quarter. So they can score points. I think they need Kevin Durant more so for the defensive end.
Okay.
Because they need extra bodies to throw at Siakam, extra bodies to throw at Kawhi Leonard, because they're down. They're down. They could be down another 2 players with Kevin Looney could possibly miss the game. And you're talking about Klay Thompson could miss the game. So defensively, they're going to need active bodies, long bodies, athletic bodies who can match up and give them the size that they need to go out there and play the game to win the next 3 games.
What do you think Nick Nurse's, B.J. Armstrong here on the Rich Eisen Show, what do you think Nick Nurse's idea is going to be over the next 2 days? What's his adjustment going to be, do you think, between games 2 and 3, based on what you saw last night?
Well, the thing he's got to do is his team came out and they played hard. They're a very physical team, but they have to play defense without fouling first, because they're going to have the home crowd. They're going to be playing on the road, and they have to play with the same physicality, but they're going to have to play without fouling. So that allows them to do what they do best, which is to use their athletic ability and get out in transition. And they're going to have to cut down on their turnovers. Okay. Nick Nurse and that staff have proven that defensively, they are a defensive team first. And that's the great thing about watching both of these teams and watching both of these coaches, is that they're coaching defense first, second, and then offensively, they'll figure it out as long as they can get stops on the other end. So they're going to have to, so again, I think the Raptors are going to have to play great defense and then cut down on their transitions and really dictate the tempo on the road, because that's a much different animal when you're playing and try to get a win, when you're trying to get a win on the road as compared to trying to get it at home.
Were you guys ever banged up, like as physically banged up as the Warriors are right now? And like, say, towards the end of your three-peat, towards the end of your 3 in a row, BJ,
I don't remember
in Chicago.
Banged up where guys are missing games. Were we banged up? Yes. At this stage of the season, everyone's banged up.
Well, certainly at this stage of a three-peat too. I mean, you'd coming off of all that extra games that fewer teams were putting on the odometer.
I don't know what the numbers are, but I would imagine over the last 5 years or so for the Warriors, they've probably played another season and a half.
No doubt. Like LeBron too, right? I mean, yeah. LeBron for the Cavs. That's why a lot of people are hoping that his sabbatical for this year's playoffs that he seems to be on right now.
He's getting his rest.
His forced sabbatical. But so you do. I'm just trying to figure out if this is an outlier, what we're seeing right here with all these missed games.
It takes a toll on the body, and you can see the injuries that they have. But somehow they continue to move on and figure out how to win and figure out how to play. So, give the Warriors credit. They're not giving any excuses not to win the games, and they're finding a way, even though it looks like they're out, but they get off the ropes and regroup and move on.
You want to make a prediction here? Who wins who wins 3 out of the next 5? If you had to take a choice right here.
I'm going to say the Raptors. I love the Warriors. I love the fact that the Warriors are the champions, and you never can count the champion out. But just looking at the activity, I think the activity in the youth will probably win out if you can get to game 5, 6, and 7. At some point, being down all the players that they are and without them being healthy is going to take its toll. But again, I think the Raptors have to do it. I thought that was a great game for them to lose by big numbers, meaning the Raptors. But somehow, some way, the Raptors, throughout all of this, and they didn't play well last night, they had a chance to win this game, even though they didn't play well. So I think their youth will probably win out there, and as the series goes on. But it's going to be a tough match, and I don't think the Warriors are going to lay down by no stretch of the imagination.
I want to take a break and come back with one more segment with you, if I may. When I want to hit on I stay in an analyst type role, but with your agent hat on.
Okay.
July 1st around the corner, and you having a client that may or may not re-sign down the road right here in Los Angeles, and you having had negotiations with the Magic, Rob Pelinka, front office, and so much more, if we don't mind staying right there.
Okay.
Thank you. That's B.J. Armstrong right here on The Rich Eisen Show. We're going to have a very interesting chat when we come back here on this program. B.J. Armstrong back for another segment right here. So in our segment, just for the television audience, I asked how the kid from Detroit wound up at Iowa and not from Michigan, and then you have the floor now.
So I wanted to go to Michigan State. Being from Michigan, Detroit. I was a huge Irvin Johnson fan, Magic Johnson fan, like everyone else.
Right.
So I go on my visit to Michigan State, and everything is going great.
Judd Heath coached the coach.
Judd Heath coached the coach. Everything is great.
And Izzo was there?
Izzo was there, and everything was going well. And they had this young guard they just got from Indiana, Scott Skiles, and it was all right. It was cool. He wasn't talking to me the whole trip, but that's fine. That was
Skiles?
Skiles wasn't talking to me, but it was okay. And Judd was like, "Hey, you know what? He's a competitor. That's just how he is. But things will work out great. He was going to be a freshman, so he was like, you guys could play for the next 2 or 3 years together in the backcourt. It'd be terrific." So at the end of my visit, like on Sunday, I leave, and then Scott just out of nowhere, he just comes up to me and he goes, "Good luck. And are you prepared?" He said, "If you do come here, just be prepared to sit on the bench and play behind me for the next 3 years."
This is what he says to you.
This is what he says to me.
To your face.
To my face. All the coaches are there, like all of the players are there. Wow. So it's like one of those awkward moments in my life, right? I'm like 18, I'm all excited. And it was just like, that was the moment. Like no one knew what to say.
Wow.
So it was like, Rich, it was like one of those moments. So the coaches didn't know what to say. You know, coaches and I, we still kind of, laugh about it today. It was like one of those moments. I was ready to come. I was ready to sign there. And then I was like, I can't go here.
But didn't Heathcote or Izzo call you up and just say, don't listen, we're the coaches, we dictate this sort of thing?
Yeah, they did, but it was already done. It was already done. It was like
Humpty Dumpty back together again. And so that's when Raveling stepped in for you? Or
yeah, Coach Raveling came in and, Michigan, they were loaded. They had the judge. Remember Antoine the Judge?
Of course. Gary
Grant, Roy Tarpley.
Oh, yeah.
Richard Relford. And then some of my friends ended up going there. Glenn Rice and Mark Hughes and all those guys. Lloyd Vault. All those guys.
You just named the '89 championship team, 3/5 of it right there.
And myself, along with the late Roy Marble, we ended up going to Iowa. So it was good. It all worked out for the best. But that was my Scott Skiles story. And so Scott and I, we're friends now, and we laugh about it. But it was one of the funniest things ever. He just came up to me. That's the only thing he said to me. Just be prepared to sit on, play behind me for the next 3 years if you do come here.
Chris, when I was at Michigan from '86 to '90, Big Ten was loaded.
Oh.
We're not even talking about Illinois.
Yeah, Illinois.
Okay, which is the team that the Steve Fisher coached Glenn Rice national championship team had to get past Kendall Gill. I mean, they were loaded. Illinois was loaded for the Ludu, for
Ohio State,
Indiana.
I
remember when Indiana and Alford came in with Bob Knight into Chrysler Arena, we would just give them the business, and it didn't go well. It didn't go very well for Michigan. It did not go well on that night.
Those were good days.
Big Ten was loaded.
Big Ten was terrific. It was a great conference, and it still is. It's a great conference.
Of course.
But those were good days, and it's always fun running into the guys.
B.J. Armstrong here on the Rich Eisen Show. Okay, so the EVP and Managing Executive for the Wasserman Media Group.
Oh, sounds good.
Okay.
Sounds good.
This is what I have written down here, sir.
Okay.
So, you represent JaVale McGee,
yes,
who played for the Lakers this year. Were you aware of all the drama that was going on in the building at the time as the agent for JaVale McGee?
Well,
BJ?
Rich, the one thing about the NBA is there's always something going on with every team. Mm-hmm. Winning just covers it up. Every team has the same issues, except when you win, it just kind of goes away. Was I aware of all of the things that were going on? Yeah, I was aware, but it was nothing out of the ordinary in the sense that, this is part of what goes on.
But you're an agent, and can you call, say, Phil and say, "Hey, Phil, are you aware of what's going on?" I'm sure you are. Because you have some aspects of your agenting at your disposal to try and.
Well, I think as an
rectify?
agent now, I have a kind of a unique perspective because not only did I play, I was an executive, so I worked in the front office. I was part of trying to help build these cultures that you hear all of these executives talking about now, and working with ownership. So the one thing about the Lakers that I think makes them unique is that you have to manage the expectations of your audience. Everyone was expecting the Lakers to, at the very least, make the playoffs. And that is the one variable that we really can't, we don't really know what the effects are, because if they would have made the playoffs, would this really be a story? So once they did make the playoffs and you saw the Lakers going in the opposite direction is when everything started to come out. So, I remember Tex Winners used to always say, winning covers a multitude of sins. It just covers everything up. And once they didn't win and when they weren't going in the right direction, you just saw everything kind of come out, and we're still talking about it today.
Well, I mean, there's a lot to talk about. I mean, the ESPN article alone that came out just recently, I want to hit you on a couple of items. Rich Paul riding on the charter. Is that normal for an agent to ride on a charter?
Well, it's not normal, but certainly there are agents now who ride. This is a new NBA. And at one point, we would never allow, I flew commercial when I first came in the league. Mm-hmm. All right. So a charter was just like, we were just happy to get on the plane.
But Michael Jordan had a middle seat? Is that what you're saying? I'm serious.
He did? No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
But in today's NBA,
right,
it's not uncommon.
Do you ride charters?
I don't. I separate myself from the players and the business because I can't be friends in a sense with an executive and all of a sudden be expected to negotiate, right? There's nothing. I want to make sure that I separate the business between my friendship and the business of what needs to be done there. So I don't. But do agents now get on planes and charters? Yeah. Family members. It's a new NBA and it's a different time. So it's not uncommon. I don't know how common it is, but I've definitely heard of agents and family members getting on charter planes today. So
when you negotiated for JaVale McGee with Magic and Rob, did you notice anything was wrong in the front office between the two of these
I didn't,
guys?
but it was, I think this Magic's in them second year. Mm-hmm. The one thing about with the Lakers is I'm friends with all of those people. Mm-hmm. I grew up in Michigan. I've been knowing Irving for 30-something years. I know Rob Pelinka. I know Jeannie Buss. So
what's going on there? And I know this is potentially a dicey subject because you've got clients and you want to negotiate there, but can you give me a sense of what you think is happening? I
can. When I came in, when I finished playing in 2000, I hope he doesn't mind me mentioning his name. Jerry Reinsdorf, who's I consider one of my mentors, who's the owner of the Chicago Bulls, he gave me the greatest piece of advice. He said, knowing what not to do is more important than knowing what to do. And as an owner, that is very, very, very important for you as an owner of knowing what not to do, how to manage people, knowing what trades not to make. It's not the trades to make, it's the trades what not to make. And I think right now, that's what you're seeing with the Lakers. You're seeing Jeannie Buss learning what not to do. And because of this experience, she will be better. And every owner who comes into this league, because they're so successful in other businesses or other parts of their life, this is a different beast altogether because you're managing people, you're managing expectations, and winning basketball games is different than going out and selling or buying or making money or whatever it is you did to become successful in the first place. And this is a different animal. So in my humble opinion, every owner who comes into this league, they go through this. This is part of their growing pains, and I think Jeannie Buss is going through it. But I guarantee you this, she will be better. The Lakers organization will be better. But as a fan of the game and watching this, you're always like, you're cringing because you're saying this can be avoided, but it just takes time to get to the next phase, which she will learn and what she'll get through.
I've got about a minute left, so just a quick lightning round, if you will.
Yes.
The Anthony Davis trade, did that mess up the locker room?
That's very tough. Because you never want to line up with a guy that you're sitting next to saying, I'm trying to find your replacement. That's very tough, just on a human level. Forget whether or not everyone knows that Anthony Davis is a great player and a great talent. But you have to treat your teammates in particular with the respect because everyone is going out there doing their very best. And many times, if you are the star player, you have to come to the realization that, those players who aren't the star players, who aren't getting the players called for them, who aren't getting the touches, that they're sacrificing to make you the star player. And that's very tough when you have a player trying to get traded during the course of this
I've got
of the year.
30 seconds left. Does JaVale want back in on this?
Without question.
He does.
JaVale had a terrific year this year with the LA Lakers. He arguably had one of his best years. He put up one game this year where he had like 30 and 20. So
he wants back in.
Absolutely. For sure.
BJ, thanks for coming on, man.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure.
I love having you on. At BJ Armstrong on Twitter.
For more of The Rich Eisen Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV for free on BR Live or download the Rich Eisen Show app.